Good evening, welcome. Yokena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarutam pravaram muninam padanjalim pranjaliranatosmi stive padanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam katra sutrasya bhashasya kramad vivaranasya cha. We were discussing the 49th sutra of Samadhivada. And we are discussing this Samprajnata Yoga, different stages in Samapatti or Samadhi. One important warning that we find in many of the commentators' works is that this higher dharana or dhyana discipline should not be practiced unless one has reached some degree of progress in yama niyamas. These are very, very important. And many of the yoga teachers in modern times have warned that, not necessarily quoting the commentaries, they're given the warning that those who may undertake long contemplations in solitude without first being fully established in yamas and niyamas could develop problems like delusions, overactivation of thought currents, which are all included in the list of 9 obstacles called antarayas that Patanjali already has explained in the previous sutra. Vyadhisthana, alasya, avirati, bhranti darshana, and so on. Bhranti darshana is one umbrella category under which can be included delusions, anxieties, worries, and so on. Especially, it's a problem that people may face if they do long breathing exercises or long contemplations in solitude. So that's an important thing to remember. Now, this is a well-known sutra, that is the 50th sutra. Before the Bhashya begins, Vyasa, the commentator, he makes one observation. Bhashyam, that is Samadhi Prajna Pradilambhe Yoginaha Prajna Krutaka Samskaru Navanavu Jayati. So it's a very important sutra. What happens when a yoga practitioner develops this higher intuition or higher wisdom, which is called Rutambhara Prajna? So in the earlier sutras, Patanjali deals with Prajna Aloka. Aloka means light, the light of Prajna, the light of the transcendental wisdom. And now he's talking about this Prajna Samskara, which is the deeper effects of this higher intuition. When you get a glimpse of something transcendental, something that goes beyond empirical, something that goes beyond what we normally understand and experience, the empirical level, then we get the conviction that there is something actually beyond what we normally pursue in our everyday life, or what modern science can explain. So this is an important point to remember. This is common experience for many spiritual seekers. Those who listen to higher ideas, which is a very gross way of beginning the spiritual life, Or at a higher level, when you practice, when you develop practicing meditation and contemplation, which is a much more subtle way of spiritual disciplines. When this happens, the first thing that really takes place in our mind is that we get an idea that there is actually something else, something beyond what we normally experience in our everyday life. Eating food, drinking water, going to college, universities, paying our dues, tax returns, doing a business, making profits, all these which are part of our empirical life, which people do. And there is an element of predictability about all this. But when such a person, let's say, inspired by some higher ideas, develops the habit of prayer and meditation, and if he really does that sincerely, then he suddenly connects with something hitherto unknown that he had not experienced till now. He gets an idea of something that goes beyond the realm of our empirical experiences. Now, that is actually the beginning of prajna. I mean, you get a very remote, a very distant glimpse of something that lies far away from us, far beyond our everyday understanding and experience. And that actually deepens our convictions, makes our mind, prepares our mind for something higher. This any person could have experienced, but that experience doesn't last long. Now, when you continue this, and when that experience becomes well established, at a higher level, you get this prajna aloka, the light of this prajna, this higher intuition, this higher knowledge, the higher awakening, the higher awareness, so to speak. Now, at a still higher level, this prajna becomes much better established. And then it becomes a samskara, a deep-rooted experience. That's what we are going to discuss now. And Patanjali says, when this new samskaras, new impressions develop as a result of this higher intuition, what happens is all the old negative impressions, worldly impressions, or impressions or tendencies coming from previous worldly experiences, they slowly decrease, they become weakened, they slowly begin to decrease and eventually disappear. And new, fresh, spiritually vibrant, enlightened samskaras begin to generate. That's what is being discussed now. Samadhi prajna pradilambhe, when you get this Ridambhara prajna, which creates in its own turn new, healthy, positive samskaras, then what happens? All the negative old samskaras disappear. Now, this is very important to remember. Frequently, our mind has a tendency to go deeper into dark chambers of our own mind. So people sometimes they may become old, they may practice for a long time, but they never get a glimpse of this higher transcendental intuition or wisdom. Until they get a little bit of that, no real transformation happens. This is an important point to remember. Because the old dirty linen still remains with him. And we may wear some outer garments, well dressed outwardly, but inside our old samskaras may still be strong. That's what happens. And as we get established in yamas and niyamas, we are actually cleansing our mind, making our mind clean and neat. And then new samskaras, prajna samskaras begin to emerge, begin to evolve. Now that's the meaning of this particular statement, samadhi prajna pradilambhe. When this samadhi prajna, this higher intuitive wisdom, which is the result of some prajna yoga that we are discussing right now, when this emerges, what happens? The yogi begins to develop new impressions, higher feelings. That's what that is. This is a very advanced state. You will get a clear idea of what we are discussing now only when you listen to some of the previous classes. Otherwise, this may appear to be very new. So you have to remember the previous classes. We already discussed Ridambara Prajna in the earlier classes. So the sutra is Tajjaha Samskaraha Anya Samskara Pradibhanchini. So those who have got the sutra can remember Tajja means something that is born out of, that is produced by this Ridambara Prajna Samskaras. I mean, this higher intuitive wisdom. These higher samskaras, higher impressions created by this higher wisdom. He says, Patanjali says, that new samskara, it blocks, it prevents the emergence of negative samskaras. So to give an example, I shall try to connect this to some kind of our everyday human experience. Suppose any of us, let us say, connects with this higher intuitive wisdom one way or other, either by reading a book seriously or by meditating for some time, or maybe by visiting a pilgrimage center, or by engaging in a discussion on spiritual topics. These are different ways of generating healthy, positive tendencies in our mind. Now, if we do this continuously for some time, you find a new set of tendencies, a repository collection of new tendencies will be created in our mental system. Now, and these healthy tendencies, the healthy samskaras, will itself becomes a repository of positivity, creativity, healthy thoughts, healthy ideas, spiritually conducive tendencies and impressions. And if we strengthen this, the quantity of this positive samskaras, then what happens, this huge quantity of positive samskaras we are generating by maybe visiting a holy place, by doing some good deed, by chanting some holy name, by praying sometimes, or by interacting with people or discussing spiritual topics. What happens, when these disciplines generate healthy samskaras, they will block negative samskaras, which you may have already acquired in the past. A person, let us say, who is addicted to taking drugs, let's say, or too much of alcoholism, let's say. Just give an example, very problem in modern times. If such a person, let us say, he practices some spiritual discipline every day, listening to higher ideas, discussing higher ideas, making pilgrimages, then you find the tendency to drink the tendency to take drugs, the tendency, the natural tendency, the inclination to do things which are undesirable. That negative tendency will slowly decrease, will become weaker and weaker. Why? Because the new tendencies, interest in spiritual life, interest in higher ideas, or at least some kind of creative activity. You may write, you may think of writing something good, you may undertake some noble philanthropical activity. Any of these activities also can generate healthy samskaras. And as these healthy samskaras become stronger and stronger, unhealthy samskaras, unhealthy tendencies become weaker and weaker. Okay, now at a still higher level, as a result of practicing yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and different stages of samapatti. When you reach this transcendental wisdom, transcendental intuition, higher knowledge, higher awareness, what happens? That higher awareness will block all the negative tendencies, will weaken all negative tendencies. You may not be able to do anything undesirable. The moment the thought comes to your mind, a higher thought will block it. When the tendency to do something wrong, something undesirable, the tendency emerges in the mind, immediately it will be blocked by a healthy tendency. You know, I won't do that. Instead of drinking, you may go and read perhaps Emerson, or at least the Sermon on the Mount, or if possible, the Upanishads, or at least Socrates or Aristotle. That is also better than doing something else. So, because you are actually ascending from the crudest biological, physical level to a higher level. If you write poetry, actually, if you write a classical, if you take an interest in philosophy and history, you are lifting your mind away from the lowest biological, physical level, what we call Tantra Mooladhara level, means the lowest biological level, the realm of the lowest biological drives. From there, your mind is lifted to something higher when you read Aristotle, when you read Kant, when you read history, when you take to modern science, when you become a scientist. But remember, the problem is that's not enough, because the old samskaras will be still there. Interest in philosophy and science and research will not completely will not completely neutralize the negative samskara. They will be still there. When they are free, they will suddenly pounce upon you. To neutralize them, you have to do something more. You know, suppose you are holding in your hand some grain, some seeds. If you're walking along the well-paved highway, if some of the seeds fall on the highway, the concrete highway, they will not sprout. But on the way, suppose the seeds from your hands happen to fall in the fertile ground, they will sprout. So the potency for the evil samskaras to connect and to become strong and potent is still there. It will not be destroyed, that potency will not be neutralized, but it could be prevented for some time. So you go to a pilgrim center, you're a holy place, you're surrounded by, let us say, holy people, you're surrounded by wonderful books, you're in an atmosphere where people discuss higher things. Naturally, your mind will be calm and quiet and very wonderful. But the moment afterwards, when you go back and you happen to be somewhere else, old tendencies may come back. That's there. So to avoid the problem of the seeds falling on the fertile ground and sprouting and becoming a poisonous tree, for that you have to take the seed, you have to burn it, you have to fry it, and then keep seed in your hands Even if it falls in fertile ground, it will not sprout. Its potency to sprout is gone. So how to burn, how to fry the poisonous seeds means the negative samskaras, negative tendencies coming from previous life, how to make them, how to render them completely ineffective, non-functional. There is only one way to generate this Ridambhara Prajna, this higher intuitive wisdom. When you do that, you are completely away from it. Now, this particular sutra, if you come back to the sutra again, this is a very complicated sutra for those who are not familiar. It's very obvious. When you explain it, it becomes very obvious. Taj, for example, Tajjaha means the higher intuitive samskaras, which is a result of this Ridambhara Prajna, higher awareness. What it does to negative samskaras is it is Pratibandhini. It blocks the emergence of negative samskaras, negative tendencies. That is, I said, Tajja samskaraha, Anya samskara Pratibandhini. So this is the sutra. You are most welcome to ask questions on this subject. It is not a easy sutra. In fact, actually, we are actually coming to the very end of the Samadhi Pada. So these two sutras are very, very important. It's also related to all of the previous sutras. So you are most welcome to engage in a discussion after the session. Now I shall read the bhashya. This bhashya is very, very important. There are other bhashyas, other stikas, Vijnana Bhikshu, Bhoja, and Vajaspati. I will discuss their commentaries later. So to begin with, the mother of all commentaries, Vyasa. That's what we will be discussing now. Samadhi Prajna Prabhava Samskara. Samadhi Prajna Prabhava Samskara means a samskara which is Samadhi Prajna Prabhava, means a tendency, that is samskaras, which is born out of Samadhi Prajna, Ridambhara Prajna. What happens? Vyuthana samskarasayam badhati. Vyuthana samskarasayam. Vyuthana means awakening of worldly samskaras. That is called Vyuthana. Nirodha means blocking the worldly samskaras. Vyuthana actually, maybe after long meditation, or maybe after reading some higher books. For some people, at some stages in their life, suddenly the worldly samskaras, worldly tendencies may emerge. It's an example of Vyuthana. Nirodha samskara means the samskara that blocks the negative samskaras. The samskaras which blocks completely, which prevents the negative samskaras from emerging. The Vyuthana Nirodha samskara. It is actually, there is a sutra on this subject. So you can remember the sutra. Those who have got a book with you, if you look at the sutra, 9th Sutra Vibhudipada. So Vyasa is actually referring to a subject discussed in the 9th Sutra of Vibhudipada. Vyuthana Nirodha samskara yohu abhivo pradurbhavu Nirodha kshana chittanyaha Nirodha parinamaha. That is the meaning. Sutra. The sutra describes the state of mind when all vrittis have been suppressed through Nirodha samskara. Means worldly samskaras, worldly vrittis, worldly tendencies, the impressions and memories and tendencies which all related to previous life experiences, when they emerge, that process is called Vyuthana. Nirodha means what? Higher samskaras which block the negative samskaras. This is actually happening in our life automatically. See, for example, when you become spiritually wise, when you become mature, what happens? First, you develop a higher purpose in life, higher goal in life. That's what we are going to discuss in the sutra. The first step for any person in spiritual life or in any life is to have something good to do, to have something positive to think, to contemplate, to worry about, to bother about. As some higher ideal in our life we should have. Because this higher ideal will help us to develop a lot of higher thoughts, higher impressions around this higher ideal. And whenever a negative thought current emerges in the mind, this higher ideal will block that negative thought current. So that higher ideal is Nirodha Vritti. The lower ideal, worldly vrittis, worldly samskaras, worldly impressions are Vyutthana Vritti. So this particular sutra tells that as the samskaras of Vyutthana, worldly tendencies, are subdued by the dominant samskaras of Nirodha, then what happens? The change with the mind undergoes every moment. That controlled state is called Nirodha Parinama. This particular sutra is in the Vibhudipada, but I am referring to the sutra because Vyasa's statement has an indirect reference to this particular sutra, the 9th sutra of Vibhudipada. So Vyasa's commentary again. So he says the Samadhi Prajna Prabha Samskaraka. That means the samskaras or impressions which are generated by this higher awareness, Ridambhara Prajna, intuitive awareness, Ridambhara Prajna. Vyutthana samskara same badhati. What happens, it completely blocks the whole baggage of all other samskaras. Vyutthana samskara bhivavad. Tat prabhavaha pratyo na bhavanti. So when this higher awareness produces a higher spiritual samskara, spiritual tendency, then that higher spiritual idea or tendency, it will defeat all the lower tendencies, outwardly tendencies. Not only that, it also will block our tendencies to do something wrong. That is why pratyo na bhavanti. So Vyutthana samskara bhiva tat prabhavaha pratyo na bhavanti means this Vyutthana pratyaya means a tendency to act in a worldly manner, a worldly tendency and a tendency to act out, to work out a worldly tendency, that will be completely neutralized. Pratyaya nirodhe samadhihi upatisthate. And when this samadhi, the samadhi prajna or Ridambhara prajna, higher intuitive awareness, completely blocks and neutralizes worldly tendencies, negative tendencies, and also completely makes it impossible for you to act out or to implement any negative desire, any worldly desire. Then what happens? Samadhi upatisthate. Then samadhi becomes a reality. Then you get established in samadhi. It's an important point. One important problem we should always remember. The samadhi prajna doesn't become a reality unless a person really works for it. It's an important, one of the major problems that many commentators point out is, after some time, people may develop a tendency, well, laziness, alasya. Alasya means, well, let us let it go on. Let us be a kind of indifference. When, at the beginning of our spiritual life, we may show a lot of enthusiasm. But after making a small, maybe little progress, some progress, then we don't feel that we are making enough progress. We feel that way, and then we feel that we are falling, or we are facing a big failure, and then people may lose interest and they become spiritually insensitive. That's why in spiritual life, there's an interesting truth that we have to keep in mind. That is, first, you may have a vertical ascent when you begin your spiritual life. People, you can ask anybody who has taken to higher spiritual life. First, there is an ascent, a vertical ascent, a progress. You may feel the progress happening in front of us. From 0 to 3, you feel there's a big transformation happening. But from 3 to 7 or 9, you may not feel the momentum. This is an important thing to remember. And we may lose interest when we don't feel the momentum. From 0 to 3 is actually a short distance. But when you first feel that you are making some progress, we may feel a big progress that is happening. We may feel strongly. But after 3, when we are continuing making this progress, we may feel less and less of the reality of the progress we are making. At that time, we may give up, or we may become indifferent to the real challenges of the mind. So that is one thing. Another thing is, it is not always a vertical ascent. After making some progress, there is a horizontal expansion. And it says like military conquest, the army moves in. It's not a very pleasant example, but this is an apt example frequently used. When the army moves in, the army may conquer a territory. But then once it has moved in, the army has to establish its control over the territory. Similarly, when we make some progress at the vertical level, we may feel, but after some time we have to get established in the progress that we have already made. At that time, we may not feel the momentum of progress. And that's a time when people sometimes can become indifferent or negligent. This is an important thing to remember. So anyway, so the point is, once you understand this, you will know that when we feel we are not making progress, we may not be actually failing. We may be making progress, but our ability to feel the progress we are making, that ability may go down. That is why Father Vyasa says, Pratyanirodhe samadhi upadishtade, tatha samadhi prajna, tatha prajna kuta samskaraha, iti navo samskarasya jayati. So one thing is, from that samadhi established, samadhi upadishtadi, when you get established in samadhi, from that stand, tataha samadhi prajna, from there you get samadhi prajna, the higher intuitive wisdom, which is the result of this Ridambhara prajna, samadhi. And from there, prajnakrita samskaraha, and from there a new set of fresh samskaras, higher tendencies may emerge. That means samskaras and tendencies which are generated by this higher awareness, which blocks the negative impact of negative tendencies. That's an important thing to remember. Nava samskaras shekha. And then what happens? A new set of samskaras. Nava means new. Samskara. Samskarasya means a repository of new samskaras. And that's, if a person can generate a lot of positive samskaras, he has won half the battle. Remember, old age doesn't necessarily mean higher samskaras. This is an important thing you should always remember. Often, we may mistake laziness or insensitivity as a sign of spirituality. Not at all. Some of the greatest spiritual leaders of the world, they lived and died young. What about Shankaracharya? He wrote the most marvelous Sanskrit classics in a Vedantic tradition before he left the primary school. He should have been playing with children, with the 9th graders or 8th graders. But this young boy had finished all the writings, which today all the Sanskrit Pandits spend 50 years, 60 years to study and debate and discuss and understand and then teach. This is an important thing to remember. And Swami Vivekananda in the 19th century brought that wisdom and expounded that in modern English language. So that to remember this very well. So this is an important thing. So living long enough and being insensitive, not being alert to the reality of spiritual evolution, that doesn't and that will not make us spiritually wise. So Ridambhara Prajna is a very important word. We can expand it in many directions. It's an important thing to remember. If you find among people great ability, but to control and restrain that ability. You see, Vivekananda says, it is easier to ride a horse, but it takes a master to know how to restrain the horse. You can ride a horse, but you may not know how to stop the horse and get out of the horse. For that, you need a higher power. So the ability to take up spiritual life and to practice self-restraint, perseverance, that takes higher power, higher strength of superior quality. That's an important thing to remember. That's why Vyasa says, Pratya nirode samadhi upadishtade. When we are able to completely block the tendency to do the wrong things, to exercise or to implement worldly ideas, when we are completely able to transcend that tendency, not only to think but also to act. Pratyas, the meaning of pratyaya includes tendencies, vrittis, vasanas, samskaras, and also the inclination to do things. All these are completely blocked. Worldly tendencies, worldly actions are completely blocked. Then samadhi upadishtha. Then one fully gets established in samadhi. Tadaha samadhi prajna. And from that established samadhi, you get this higher intuitive wisdom. That is called samadhi prajna. So it should be our goal in our life to get a bit of this samadhi prajna. And then it continues. Of course, this leads to the creation of new tendencies, new samskaras, and eventually it may lead you to higher evolution in your spiritual life. If you are a devotee, if you are following the path of devotion, it may one day help you to practice self-surrender, what we call prapatti in the Vaishnava tradition, self-surrender that you can find in the lives of St. John of Cross, or St. Teresa of Avila, or many of the great mystics. If you practice this Ridambhara Prajna, the Ridambhara Prajna, if you are a devotee, it will help you to practice self-surrender. If you are a Vedantin, it may help you to attain Vasana Kshaya, or it's called, Manonasha, or Jivan Mukti. I mean, you are able to go beyond mind. You are able to completely transcend your own vasanas and samskaras and tendencies, and you will become liberated even while living in this world. Once you are able to develop this Ridambhara Prajna. Because the Ridambhara Prajna itself will generate a new set of samskaras. And those samskaras will take you to higher and higher levels of spiritual evolution, whether you follow the path of yoga, devotion, or Advaita, whatever may be. And if you are not even a believer in God, as Buddha was not a believer in God, it may help you to reach a level of mental maturity, level-headedness, which you find in Buddha's teachings. Buddha's teachings are very much based on this Ridambhara Prajna, that level-headedness, the balance of mind, the wisdom that he expressed in all his instructions and words can find. So Ridambhara Prajna is actually, it implies this emergence of higher intuitive wisdom, which in our everyday life translates into a kind of spiritual common sense that will help us, whatever may be our work, or whatever may be a walk of life, whatever may be our job, even if you're walking, if you are doing a business, if you are working in a factory, even if you are doing your everyday activity, this higher intuitive wisdom will give you a kind of level-headedness, a maturity of outlook, an ability to act with propriety and moderation, and in a righteous manner. This is an important. It is not the result of diplomatic training with artistic words, nothing of the kind. A natural, spontaneous, inborn ability to be level-headed and to practice this moderation and spiritual common sense in our words and actions, not in a very insensitive manner, but in a very sensitive manner. So that's why Vyasa continues, Katham aso samskara disyaha chittam sadhigaram na karishyati. Now one question may arise. Ridambhara Prajna, it produces a lot of new, healthy, positive spiritual samskaras, which replace the old negative samskaras. Okay, we can understand that. Now, in this Vyasa's commentary, he poses a question and he himself gives an answer. A very interesting question. Katham aso samskara disheha chittam sadhigaram nagarishyati iti. Now, normally, when you get this, normally all samskaras will prompt you to do something. This vritti, samskara, karma. These are interrelated. Whatever we do, it creates a vritti, an impression, and that maybe that's a residual effect, and a vritti becomes a samskara, a strong tendency. And the tendency will prompt you to do the same activity. That's an important thing to remember. We don't do anything unless we have a samskara in our mind which is conducive to doing that. The important thing to remember. A person will not tell a lie unless he has some kind of negative samskaras in his mental system which is conducive to telling a lie. A person will not do an act of compassion unless he has in his mind a positive samskaras, which is related to compassion, kindness, forgiveness, etc. So whatever we do is an outer expression of our samskaras. And whatever we do, that again reinforces our samskaras. So this is kind of vicious cycle. You can like a wheel. Karma, vritti, samskara. Again karma, vritti, samskara. Karma, vritti, samskara, chakram. That's a term used in the commentary. What mean? Chakram means wheel. Beginning with karma, action, it creates a vritti, it becomes a samskara, and the samskara again induces you to do similar action. This continues. Now, one question is put before you by Vyasa, and he himself gives the answer. Suppose you get this Ridambhara Prajna, this higher intuitive wisdom, then you may feel, well, you have a mission to reform the world. You know, sometimes in psychology, it's called the delusions of grandeur. This is one of the delusions. You may feel you are a Jesus Christ, you have come to contribute something to the world, you are a Julius Caesar, you are a Napoleon. Of course, it has got two aspects. Suppressed tendencies. Many people think they are something very wonderful in certain areas. There are some exceptional skills, extraordinary skills. People may believe that. Only when he reaches a pathological level, you put that person in a lunatic asylum. Otherwise, many people live with these delusions. No problem for them and no problem for others also. So, Vyasa is asking a question. Suppose you get this higher Ridambhara Prajna, this higher samskara. Immediately you may see, well, I have got this higher wisdom. I have to do something to help the world is suffering. I frequently have to encounter such people who claim that they had some kind of a kundalini raising and some kind of something, and they heard a noise coming from their own heart, and they feel that they have something wonderful to do to help this suffering world, and humanity was waiting for them to emerge. This sort of tendencies you can find in, of course, this may not always be in the form of delusions of grandeur as a problem listed in psychiatry books. It could also be some kind of a feeling that may come to us, because and that feeling can block our further progress. That's why Vyasa is bringing out this subject here. Katham, he says, katham aso samskaraka, katham aso samskaradisheha chittam sadhigaram na karishyati. So this kind of samskaras will induce, I have to do something, I have to work out. So, when you get spiritual wisdom, you don't immediately become impatient to share it with the rest of the humanity. If you really get spiritual wisdom, you may teach in a class, in a lecture, in storytelling, but you don't immediately feel that you have to lift a humanity and that you have reached some higher level, you have a mission for the world. You don't feel that way. Now, okay, there were great people who really felt that way. You can easily tell them when you see. Do you find their spirituality, their compassion, their moderation, their maturity, their level-headedness, their forgiving nature, and also the ability to withstand storms in life, disasters in life, without being shaken. If you find those qualities, like the person claims, he never claims, once you get the real experience, the first thing you learn that it is not something that you are expected to claim. That's an important point, remember. If a person really gets a little bit of spiritual progress, the first thing that comes to him, well, this is something I've got, but I'm not expected to speak too much about it to others. You may teach in a book, but you don't feel that you have a mission for reforming the world. That's an important thing. That is the important thing. So so this is the question. Nate prajna kudaha samskaraha klesha kshayahedutva chittam adhigaram visistam kurvanti. Na kurvanti. The Anvaya is na kurvanti. So those who read the text, of course, otherwise don't worry. So the point is, nate prajnaguda samskara. So these samskaras, tendencies, impressions, generated or created by the emergence of this higher spiritual awareness. When you become spiritually enlightened, you become endowed with these higher samskaras. Those samskaras, what do? They destroy all the kleshas. Klesha, we should remember. Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, klesha. You find this sutra in the beginning, at the beginning of, not the first sutra, but later in the sadhana pada, you find avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, klesha. So this particular sutra should be remembered when you read this sutra. What's the sutra? You should remember. This is a third sutra, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, panchaklesha. I mean, error, ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, clinging to life, going wrong all the time, extreme egoism, extreme attachment to certain things, infatuation to certain things. You become enslaved by your attachment, infatuation to certain things. Again, you become enslaved by your blind hatred or aversion to certain things, or always being afraid of something, abhinivesha, clinging to life, always the obsession with minor little things of this world, life. So these are 5 kleshas. So this Ridambhara Prajna, this higher intuitive wisdom, it destroys these kleshas. It destroys egoism. It destroys ignorance. It destroys aversion, attachment, infatuation for certain things, blind hatred for certain things, irrational fear for certain things. All these are completely destroyed by this Ridambhara Prajna. That's why Vyasa says, Nate prajnakada samskaraha klesha kshahe. They, because they completely destroy all the kleshas. What happens? Chittam adhigaram visishtam guruvandi. Chittam adhigaram visishtam no guruvandi. Meaning, that means, because this Ridambhara Prajna, it destroys all these kleshas, bondages, problems of mind, problems of chittam. Because it's only when you are imbued, when you are caught by a strong desire to have certain things, or when you are caught by a strong hatred for certain things, or when you are extremely egoistic, then only you have a tendency to go about doing things. But this Ridambhara Prajna, it destroys all these panchakleshas. Therefore, it doesn't induce you to do certain things. So that is an important thing to remember. In other words, there's an implication in this bhashya, in this commentary, that any person who is endured with Ridambhara Prajna, this higher intuitive wisdom, the first thing that happens to him is he will have an ability to be level-headed, to be realistic, to be balanced, to be moderate, and he'll be able to digest what he has already attained. This is an important thing to remember. So that means actually, if you read these commentaries, you can understand why Vyasa considered these 9 obstacles, the 9 antarayas, as a hindrance to mental stability, chitta prasada. You can ask questions. With this, we are, of course, we are not concluding this Samadhipada here. There is another sutra, which is also very important. That sutra is, we will discuss in the next session. We have not completed Bhashya on this sutra. The next sutra is Tasyabi Nirodhe Sarva Nirodha Nirbija Samadhi. So how even going beyond this Sabija Samadhi, one can attain, one should strive to attain Nirbija Samadhi. With that, the 51st Sutra, Samadhi Pada, comes to an end. So we may perhaps need 2 more sessions to complete the Samadhi Pada. These sutras are very important. And remember, you are most welcome to ask questions. This Bhashya is very important, and I can, if there is time, I shall read other commentaries also. Most welcome with questions.
Hari Om Maharaj.
Hari Om, yeah.
Maharaj, you were actually talking about this karma, vritti, sanskara chakra, right? And you were talking about how, so towards the end, you were talking about Ritam Parapragya and how that someone who is endowed with this natural intuitive sense can move towards these towards the positive side of this chakra. But what about the people who are stuck on the negative side of the chakra? Because it's a chakra which keeps pulling them more and more down. And it's how does someone break out of something like this without providence or some sort of divine grace?
First, they should listen to these classes and understand that they have a problem and they can solve the problem. It's not beyond their power to solve the problem if they try. So that's an important thing to remember. First of all, even the ability to enjoy ideas that talk about higher purposes of life, the real meaning of life, that itself is one good solid step towards coming out of this cycle. To realize, actually intellectually, at the beginning of our evolution, we may intellectually become aware that we are actually part of this cycle, this wheel. So once we become aware of these, then we may feel the need to get out of this wheel. Yeah. Any person who tries to read, try to understand and think and discuss, or some ways to connect, participate in any kind of activity that is somehow linked to some kind of spiritual life. They're trying to give an example, simple example. Vedanta Society temple has opened, and people are now they begun to come back. Formerly, they had to drive 40. They didn't have to drive for 2 years. They had the wonderful luxury of listening to all the great ideas, sitting in their drawing room, in their kitchen, in their library. They didn't have to travel even for a minute. Now we are opened. Now, when you visit holy places, temples, or any place like that, and become part of a system and meet other people who are also congregating in those places to share and to listen to higher ideas, you are actually beginning your journey to get out of this wheel, really speaking. Any effort, actually. Also, those who are listening online, they're also doing the same thing, but much more effective it will be if they become part of the system. As I mentioned to you, any kind of activity, listening, online listening, real in-person listening, reading, discussion, taking interest in these things. Because remember, here we are not discussing anything related to worldly enjoyments. Rather, it takes a lot of intellectual courage and spiritual courage and a refinement of mind to have an active interest in discussing higher ideas. That's an important thing to remember. So every such effort is one step towards getting out of this wheel, really speaking.
Yes, Maharaj, just a follow-up. But to even be able to say appreciate or be able to sit in a class like this or even have the opportunity to do that is something which comes with a great amount of fortune, right? We are all fortunate that we are able to listen to you today and learn about all of this. And many people might not have either the inclination or even the opportunity to do this, right?
Yeah.
So my question was more from that perspective, where someone who is living a very cursed life, what would that person like how would that person like break out of it? It's a very
Yeah, no, as you know, Vedanta tells everyone will get an opportunity, but at some stage or one stage at one time or another, but uh, we can't say when the whole world will become liberated. We can't really give an answer to that question. But your question is very logical, and there is a noble, compassionate mind behind that question. I can fully appreciate. What we can do, we can make these available to as many people as possible. That's all we can say. See, when we don't have a job, we look for a job. When we don't have money, we look for some job that can guarantee a regular income. Now, it's all visible, tangible. We know very well the problem is obvious and the answer to the problem is also obvious. But here, the problem is not so obvious. We frequently don't become so fully convinced that there is a problem in continuing a mechanical life without the higher aspiration. So all that we can do is to our best to make it. Okay.
thank you, Manoj.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bobby, I think.
Yeah.
Yes,
Most welcome.
I have my hand up on behalf of two YouTube questions, but there are
Yeah.
also questions, hands up from three of the Zoom attendees.
Most welcome. Yeah.
So I'll just offer these from YouTube.
Yeah.
Swamiji, when we are spiritually at mark 3 to 7, where it may feel we are not growing, but in reality we are, how do we stay consistent on the path? How do we continue to destroy kleshas during such stages?
Yeah. Now, it really happens, so you, for example, when you're climbing the steps, let's say, when from the top, let's say you're climbing the staircase, let's say, from the bottom to the third step, you may feel the momentum. You may feel you made a lot of progress. From the third step to the maybe eighth step, ninth step, we may not feel the momentum so intensely. That's because we have already made some progress. So we naturally become less sensitive to the progress we are making. So the only way to get out of this problem is to fix our mind on the higher goal all the time, without stopping at every point to make an estimate of the progress we have made. This is a real problem. In fact, that is actually listed at one of the antarayas, obstacles in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Avirati, alabdhabhumigatvam. Means sometimes we feel we have not made any progress, we have not reached anywhere. That kind of feeling can come. So, in order to avoid that, we have to fix our mind on the higher goal, and also to become aware of the possibility of this problem. When we are aware of the reality of this problem, we may be able to encounter it without being much affected by that. So awareness of a problem helps us to look at the problem from a different perspective. Then it becomes a much lesser problem, really speaking. That's why in olden days, in the early days, the yoga practice, this asana, pranayama, all these were taught under teachers. For example, I mentioned this earlier, pranayama and asana, even dharana can create problems of delusions and all this. So teachers could always instruct them, especially when there were not too many disciples, they had nothing else to do. They could concentrate entirely on this. And also spiritual seekers came very young, so it was easy for them to progress. But in modern times, still yoga has got a great relevance, especially the yama niyama part of yoga is very significant. It is as applicable as the most active businessman in Manhattan, as for a hermit living in a hermitage in a forest. The yamas can be practiced by any person, especially yamas, because yamas are technically, they are so universal, so universal. And it doesn't take much effort on our part to practice if we are really sincere and earnest about it. So once you actually step into the first step, you're already boarded the bus. Sincerely, if a person takes to practicing ahimsa, satya, astaya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, actually he's boarding the bus, which is moving to his destination. So, and that can be done by anyone. Remember, one important thing about Yoga Sutras are not necessarily meant for monastics or hermits. Yoga Sutra is a universal spiritual way of life. Okay. I mentioned this earlier. In fact, the word Raja Yoga was essentially a mode of life practiced by kings, ruling monarchs, comparable to modern CEOs, politicians, presidents, or prime ministers of a country. They were the ones who practiced yoga. I mean, Gita, if you read the fourth chapter, Imam Vivasade Yogam Praktavanaham Avyam Vivaswan Manave Prahaman Vikshakave Abravi Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajashya Vidhu Sakale Naika Mahata Yogo Nashta Parandava. I mean, the fourth chapter, the first and second verse describe, the practicality and the practical aspect of Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is nothing but yoga put in practice. And what was the essence of this Raja Yoga? Yamas or niyamas. Those kings were great sages and monarchs rolled into one, because they were establishing yamas and niyamas. That can be done by anyone. If the ruling monarchs in ancient times could practice yoga, why not modern politicians, administrators, CEOs, people who are busy all their life, people who have to work for 15 hours of the day? Why can't they practice? It's an example. So it's an important thing to remember.
Yes. There are two Zoomers with questions, but there is a remaining question on YouTube. I'll ask it quickly.
Yeah.
Are the results of Rhythm? Oh, wait. There's a follow-up from the prior question.
Yeah.
Is it true? Oh, wait. Oh, there's a thank you. All right, let me see how to do this. Are the results of Ritam Param Prajna permanent? Or does the subconscious desires reoccur and surface back to the mind and drag the mind back to samsara?
Yeah. Ritampara Prajna, its effect is permanent, because after going through several levels of restraint, you reach the Ritampara Prajna, because you are developing a great samskara, a great tendency, a great noble positive spiritual tendency, and you have already neutralized, already destroyed and defeated all negative tendencies, negative and positive tendencies, which are really obstacles in our life, and in their place you have developed a higher positive samskaras. It is very similar to what we in Vedanta Akhandakara Vritti. At one level of spiritual evolution, Advaita Vedanta, you reach a point where you look upon everything as Brahman. So that Akhantakara Vritti, of course, we'll discuss that later when we discuss the 51st Sutra. But here, the point is, you are developing a superior, higher samskara. In that context, I specially mentioned for a beginner in spiritual life, taking a leaf from this sutra, the first thing to do is to have a noble purpose, noble ideal, a noble goal in our mind. Even for a beginner, let's say, an interest in studying something, doing something which is positive, is an expression of higher creativity. That will block the emergence of so many small little negative samskaras. Otherwise, every little bit of negative samskara will be a problem. It will be there nagging, trying to bring our mind to its level. But once you have something higher to achieve, then you find many of these things actually become weak and they go away. So that is an example. But when you actually reach Ridampara Prajna, its effect is permanent. Then negative samskaras will not re-emerge again. If they re-emerge, even they will have no effect on you. I mentioned this example. There's like seeds that are let's say which are burned. Dagdha bija means seeds which are fully burned. Even if they fall in fertile ground, it will not sprout. So like that, even if negative tendencies will emerge, you will not be affected. Another point to remember, when we reach a level of this higher intuition, you will be able to be aware of something that is actually emerging in your mind. When you are able to be aware of something, you are actually dissociating yourself from it. Because when you are under its control, you become identified with it. When you are able to objectify it, see it, and become aware of its emergence, you are actually dissociating it. You're detaching yourself from it. The subject-object distinction will be there. So when you have a tendency to be angry, you'll be aware of it. And when you are aware of it, you won't be angry any longer. Actually, we are angry because we forget ourselves. We become completely identified with anger. That's how we become angry. Suppose, well, I think I'm going to be angry now without any reason. You won't be angry any longer. Suppose you feel, well, you are going to be angry or irritable unnecessarily. You won't be irritable any longer. In fact, higher wisdom means the ability to throw the flashlight into your own inner being. And you're aware of it, the dark chambers of your own mind. Then you won't be affected by that. Because you are not identifying yourself with it. Okay, that's it. Is that clear?
Very clear. I mean, the poet does explore these things, so it's useful to use those methods of self-examination. There were two very patient Zoomers.
Please.
I think Yogi might be first. I'm not sure, and then Sudha.
Yogi, most welcome, Yogi.
Pranam Maharaj. Buddhist literature mentions Nirodha Samapatti.
Yeah.
Is it same as what is described in Sutra 50?
Yeah, Nirodha Samapatti is a state before Nirvana. Samyak Samadhi is one of the 8 disciplines. And Nirodha Samapatti is actually, there are similarities, but Buddhist reading of Samapatti is post Patanjali development. So naturally, they may have drawn on a lot of Patanjali system. We don't know whether Vyasa's commentary is pre-Buddhistic or post-Buddha. I don't know. We can't say, but Patanjali is certainly pre-Buddhist. It belongs to pre-Buddhist period. So Nirodha Samapatti is a state before the Samyak Samadhi mentioned as the 8th of the eight limbs of Buddha as a penultimate state before nirvana.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Vachaspati commented on these sutras. I was wondering if you could tell us more about what his commentary was.
Vachaspati, I already, in the early classes, I used to.
Oh, I probably missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I already, Yoga Bhashya Vartim, I already got it many times, and we may come to that again. Most of my early classes in this new series were based on Vachaspati rather than Vyasa's commentary. So we can later, Tattva Vaisharati. So these two books, Vachaspati and Vijnana Bhikshu, the Tattva Vaisharati and Yoga Bhashya Vartim, we already discussed many times earlier. So you can refer. We will discuss that again.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
One factual question. You mentioned that the Amnaya is referring to the Shruti, the synonym for Shruti, but it emphasizes vocal tradition. The mathas are called Dakshinamnaya, Sringeri. Is that reference due to the fact that the Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharva are distributed between Dwaraka, Sringeri, Puri, and Jyotirmat?
Yeah, Amnayate Upadishyate Anaya iti Amnayate Upadishyate Dharma Anaya iti Sruti. This is the Mimamsa's interpretation. Amnayate Brahmadinam Paramatmanam Labhanda. This is another Labhande iti Veda. This is interpretation according to Shankaracharya. So Amnaya means advising. Amnayate Upadishyate. So the Amnaya is a synonym for Vedas, Amnaya is one of the synonyms of Veda. Veda Shabda is Amnaya. Sudhi also Amnaya. Vidhadu, knowledge, in that sense, Brahmadhinam, Paramatman, Labhanda iti Veda. Veda means that from which we understand, we learn the highest spiritual truth of Brahma Jnanam. That is one thing. Amnaya the term was used mostly by Mimamsakas in many cases, and so Amnayade Upadishyate Dharma Anaya iti Sudhi means Sudhi. Sudhi is a Strilinga. So that which teaches Dharma is Amnaya. That is the definition given by Mimamsakas, because Dharma is a central topic. Brahmajnanam is a central topic of Vedas according to Vedanta. So the point is, Amnaya itself is Vedas. Amnayade means Upadishyate, means instructing, teaching. So Dakshinamnaya, Uttaramnaya means that maybe Vedic, in the center of Vedic instruction, that is in the southern direction, southern part of India. Shankaracharya founded the Dakshinamnaya in Sringeri. That's why.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Amnaya, remember, Amnaya means Veda. It is one of the synonyms of Veda. And also, as a verb, it means that which instructs, teaches. That's idea. So the southern center of Vedic learning, Vedic instruction, because Shankaracharya founded this Dakshinamnaya Sringeri as a seat of Yajurvedic tradition. So in that sense, yeah.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
a question. So Ritambara Pragga, when do you think Thakur got that Ritambara Pragga?
Well, Ritambara Prajna is a result of spiritual practice. It may be not necessarily through yogas only. Remember,
Right.
You see, the moment you get established yamas and niyamas, you're already, I told you, you're already bored of the bus. And then asana doesn't mean the elaborate yoga postures taught in yoga studios. Asana
Right.
means sitting in a sitting posture for meditation. That's the only meaning in which Patanjali uses Sthira Sukham Asana. And then Pranayama, of course, was part of the puja practice Sri Ramakrishna practiced. And then dharana, dhyanam, that was what he was doing all his life. So Ridambhara Prajna can be achieved by a devotee, not necessarily through Patanjali Yoga practice. Any devotee, any bhakta, or any jnani, they can reach Ridambhara Prajna. Yamas and Niyamas lay the strong foundation. From there you take off. Sri Ramakrishna must have already reached Ridambhara Prajna, when he was very small, and also when he was doing puja at the temple. We don't know exactly, but Sri Ramakrishna was supremely adored with that all his life. We don't find any instruction from Sri Ramakrishna. He doesn't bear the stamp of Ridambhara Prajna. He was fully established in that. None of the words in the gospel can come from a person who is not fully established in Ridambhara Prajna. So every word that you get is an expression of this higher intuitive wisdom. The way he talks to Yam in the first meeting, and the way he interacts with devotees. Again, as I mentioned, that level-headedness, supreme spiritual wisdom, the insight into things, in persons, and events, and everything. The scriptural meaning. Sri Ramakrishna could capture the essence of any scripture in a moment. So that's a supreme example of Ridambhara Prajna. We should remember Ridambhara Prajna is not a word that Patanjali talks about. It is a state of human spiritual evolution. Patanjali's term, it's like that. So this is an important thing to remember. Ridambhara Prajna is not a word used by Patanjali. Ridambhara Prajna is actually a state of spiritual evolution. In Patanjali's system, it is called Ridambhara Prajna.
So can you associate this state with a particular chakra? Like if your mind is going up according to along.
Madhusudana Saraswati, in his commentary on the Gita, Gudhartha Deepika. So Madhusudana Saraswati has given a very elaborate description of this Patanjala system and evolution, Sapta Bhumika, and so on, in the light of Gita. So if you are interested, you can buy a book which contains a very long article by me, published by the Institute of Culture. It is the digest of papers presented in International Gita Conference. So my paper on Patanjali, Madhusudana Saraswati's Gudhartha Deepika. It is loaded with a lot of Sanskrit, a very long one, but you are the person who can enjoy that. So you can buy that book. It's available in our bookstore. Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be available. If you don't have, I can give an extra copy. Please let me. Okay. There you find a description of all this. Madhusudana was the great Advaita teacher who came in the line of Shankaracharya's tradition, who wrote Advaita Siddhi, is a great dialectical work, and a well-known, many other books he wrote, but his famous work on the Gita is Gudhartha Deepika. It's a commentary following Shankaracharya's footsteps. It's a very celebrated, one of the celebrated works belonging to the post-Shankarite period on the Gita. You can read it. You can read that article which outlines how Madhusudana connects Patanjali Yoga system with Gita. That is one of his specialities. Madhusudana is well known for connecting Gita with the Patanjali system. Yeah.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So thank you for the wonderful questions. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.
Pranam.